In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace your wheel hub on your Chevy Colorado. It's located on the front axle. Using a pry bar, you're going to remove your hubcap. Using a 19mm socket, we're going to remove our wheel. Remove your wheel. Using a 21mm socket, I'm going to put it on this nut on the top. And I'm going to use my impact gun to loosen it up. Now we're going to hit it right here, and that's going to pop the tie rod down. Gently, you can tap it here, but don't smash it. You could turn your wheel out if you need to. And that'll help drop that out. And just set it off to the side. Using a 21mm socket, we're going to take off these two bolts for the caliper. Take the full brake caliper off with pads. Do the same on the top. Use a hanger. Hang it off your control arm on the top there, or anywhere you can find. Just make sure that brake hose doesn't get kinked when you take this off. And we're going to take this off. Yours might come off really easy. Ours is very rusty. If you feel like yours will come off easy, you're going to want to keep a hand on it while you take that other bolt out. I'm going to use my pry bar up against this rotor and pull off this caliper. I'm going to go back and forth, underneath and on top. Now we can hang this up. Again, don't kink that brake hose. Using a 35mm axle socket, you're going to put it on the nut. I'm going to use a pry bar to hold this still. After you remove the nut, use a magnet to get the washer off. Now we're going to use a dead blow hammer or rubber mallet and make sure this axle is free. Give it a couple taps. Looking good. Using an 8mm socket, I'm going to take out my ABS sensor. Loosen that bolt. Take it out, set it aside. Now we're going to wiggle this free. Take that out. We're going to unhook it. You may need a small pry bar to get that out. Be gentle with the wire. Make sure you're just getting at the rubber part. the same for this other bushing. And we're going to place this up here and out of the way. So the wheel's turned all the way to the left, and I'm using a 15 millimeter short socket with an extension and a swivel. And I'm going to get to these bolts right here. You may be able to get it with a wrench as well, but I'm going to use my air gun. Do the same for this bottom one. Now we're going to turn the wheel to get to the other side. I have the same setup on the bottom here for this lower one. This one's a little tougher to get to. It's not easy getting that one. Put that aside. And we're going to go for our last one on the top. Last bolt. Let's take that one off. Now that we've done that, we're going to try to get this hub off. Now that we've freed that up, I'm going to make sure that axle comes out. So now we're going to remove our rotor from the hub. You're going to need a pry bar so that this doesn't spin on you when you try to take these off. So you have 6 bolts you got to remove. You are going to need a thin-walled socket, 17 millimeter, in order to get it in there. Spin this, do the other 3. Once you have all those out, you're going to take these out. Set them aside. And now we're going to separate the hub and rotor. If you're keeping your rotor and you want to install it onto the hub, you're going to want to use wood to hold up the rotor on each side. We're not keeping this rotor. It's damaged, so we're not worried about that. But you want something that's a little more cushy than what I'm using. Also, we're going to bang on the hub because that's what we're replacing. If you do not care about your rotor, you can take this off another way, banging on the rotor instead. Because I want to show you how to do it and keeping your rotor intact and in good shape, we're going to do it this way. I'm going to put a piece of wood on top just to dampen the sound, and we're going to give it a good few taps to release the rotor from the hub. Alright, so now we can remove our rotor. So here we are, we're going to put our rotor and hub back together. With a new hub, we're going to use a new rotor as well. So I'm going to prop my rotor up with whatever you got, preferably something wood, but it really doesn't matter at this point. You're going to slide this in. Make sure your rotor is got the curved part facing you. Slide these guys in there. And you spin this till it lines up. All your holes should line up. Now we're going to get our bolt started. Now we're going to snug them up. Use my pry bar. Just be careful you don't ruin the studs. So be gentle about the way you have a pry bar on there. I'm going to go crisscross while tightening this down. Now we're going to torque this to 89 foot-pounds. I do want to make a note. Make sure you use the crisscross pattern when you're tightening down these bolts. And if you're using a power tool, make sure it's very light and it's not going to crank it down because you don't want to warp the rotor. I just use this to snug it up. You can use hand tools if you want. Also, if you go to torque it and it's already torqued, then these are way too tight. Do you want to back them off? Do it by hand and then go ahead and torque. So now we're going to torque our bolts to 89 foot-pounds. Again, do a crisscross manner. It's not the easiest thing to do. Be patient. I'm going to go crisscross here to here. Now we can install it on the car. We're going to clean up the area. You can use emery cloth too if you want, or a fine sandpaper. Spray it down. Clean it up. Make sure you get this nice and clean. Let it drip dry. I'm going to clean off my dust shield just where the bolts are. Now's a good time to replace this if you need to. You want to clean inside here as well. Especially if it's rusty like this one. I'm using some rough emery. Use some brake parts cleaner and clean that up. Make sure you have your dust shield in place, or close to in place. Put some grease on your spindle and inside the hub. That'll help you install it. And we're going to slide this on. Once you know you're lined up correctly and your axle is in, now you're going to line up your dust shield and the hub. Hold it in place. We're going to turn our hub until the bolts line up, or the bolt holes line up. Push your bottom bolt through. And you're going to want to get that bolt started at the bottom of that corner. That's going to help hold it in place. All right, once you have one bolt started, you can try getting another one started. Make sure that dust shield is lined up. Now that you have two bolts started, we're going to turn the wheel and we're going to get our other two started. Again, make sure it goes through that dust shield. And let's get this one that's really tough to get to last. So now we're going to snug up our bolts using our 15mm extension swivel. I'm going to do the one up here, and then I'm going to go to this bottom one on the other side. You got to get that bottom one. Now I'm going to turn it this way. And we're going to get the top one. Once we have all four bolts snug, we're going to torque those to 96 foot-pounds. Let's start torquing our bolts. Now I'm going to go across on the other side and torque that one. Now I'm going to go below. Torque this last one. You may have to hold your wheel while you torque it. Now we're going to put our caliper on. I'm going to remove my bungee cord up here. And we're going to take it off the hanger. Again, be careful not to kink your brake hose. Now we're going to put our caliper on the rotor. Make sure you remove your hanger. Now let's put our caliper on. Get that bolt started. Now you can get your bottom one started. You may have to wiggle it back and forth to get it in there. Use my socket. Now we're going to snug them up and then torque them to 133 foot-pounds. Torque this bottom one to 133 foot-pounds. And also the top. Let's put our ABS sensor back in its bracket. Helps if you put a little lubricant on there. Slide your bushings onto the bracket. I use a little silicone paste to ease it on there. Now we're going to put our ABS sensor in. Make sure it's clean. And put our bolt in. Go ahead and hand tighten that. And we're going to snug it up. After you snug it, go about a quarter of a turn, tighten it up. Let's put our tie rod in the knuckle. Move it over. If you need to move your stud for the tie rod, go right ahead. I have a trick for that. You put a socket on top and you can move it around. Makes it easier. Once you get it lined up, you can give it a little tap if you need to. Start your castle nut. You're going to hold pressure on it and you're going to zip it on. And now we're going to torque that. Let's torque this nut to 33 foot-pounds, and then we're going to go another quarter of a turn. That's 33, and now we're going to go a quarter of a turn. And check where that... Okay, I'm going to go a little bit more. Making sure that hole lines up with the castle nut. Looking good. Now we're going to get our cotter pin and put that in. Put your cotter pin in. I usually have the long side on top. Now we're going to bend that up and over. And then we're going to take the other end and you can just cut it off. So now we're going to tighten up our axle nut. Make sure you have something to keep it from spinning. We're going to torque our axle nut to 191 foot-pounds. I have a pry bar between two studs so it doesn't spin on me. Put your wheel on. Put your lug nuts on. You're going to tighten your lug nuts in a crisscross manner using a 19mm socket. Make sure you walk the wheel on with that bottom one. Now you can torque the wheel. We're going to torque our wheel to 103 foot-pounds. You're going to do that in a crisscross manner. Put your hubcap on by lining up the lug nuts. Tap it on.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.